I will take the opportunity to get us a tiny bit off schedule. I'll be about 18 minutes here. Got a lot to talk about. So early treatment bNAbs and post-treatment control. I slightly changed the title. Remission, post-treatment control. We're going to, same idea. Do I have a forward button? Yes, I do. Okay. So I'll be starting with early infant treatment and how that can generate post-treatment control. Then I'll talk a little bit about existing data for bNAbs and post-treatment control. And then I'll talk about the Tutela study and the Tutela Plus studies. So let's start at the beginning. What happens to the viral reservoir when we start with very early infant treatment? And I'm going to use the Botswana EIT study as an example for this, but I want to point out that there are several similar findings from other early treated pediatric cohorts. But this is a typical example of the findings that many groups are finding. So from 2015 to 2018, the EIT study offered DNA PCR testing to over 10,000 exposed infants at large delivery sites in Botswana. This is about 30% of all the exposed infants in Botswana. One-day PCR turnaround, and the overall in utero transmission was 0.4%. So I think everyone in this room knows that that's an incredibly low number. So really, that is the Botswana government doing an amazing job with vertical transmission. 40 infants were enrolled and started on ART at a median of day 2 of life. So this is the cohort that is in all the next several studies that I'll talk about. So what we found, and I'm just jumping to the viral reservoir data here, is a much lower viral reservoir in EIT compared with infants who started ART later in the first year of life. And you can see the group in the far side of the slide. Those are children, that's the reservoir in children who started actually what we normally would consider typical time early, anytime like around 6 to 9 months of age. But you can see that their reservoirs at 2 years or 2 to 3 years are quite a bit higher than those in the group that started at birth. And when you look at the intact virus, so not just all virus, but intact virus, it's an even stronger decline. The open circles here represent the inability to find intact virus. They're just put where the limit of detection is. So really you can see very few children that have intact virus, both in the intact and then the red bars are the intact and the blue turquoise bars are the defective. But this is the decline in intact virus over the first 2 years of life, and it's pretty dramatic. So the next question is, does this lead to post-treatment control? Does this advantage of starting at birth lead to control? I made this slide on the plane yesterday. So possible routes to post-treatment control after ART. Let's just talk about how we get to post-treatment control. So starting with a reservoir at birth, you then add very early ART, and that is going to reduce your total reservoir and your intact reservoir. So smaller reservoirs. Then there's 3 possible ways we can get to post-treatment control. One is what we call type 1 or low reservoir control. This would be through further loss of intact virus, through treatment and through decay over time and changes in the immune system, and then through more of a quiescent immune system. The second group, type 2, would be a locked reservoir control. We have a little bit of evidence for this in pediatrics, but not much. We're trying to learn more about this mechanism, where it would be an immune-driven loss of intact virus from genic regions of the genome, possibly driven by NK, dendritic, and other immune mechanisms that drive the virus into gene deserts, so that there's virus there, but it's not going to replicate. And then the last bucket is very rare in children, but it's the more typical T-cell mediated control. So this would be like elite controllers for those who are not on ART, or post-treatment control typically in adults, which often may be T-cell mediated, and this seems to be rare in children. So These are the cases of pediatric control to date. The first evidence comes from the Mississippi baby, the South African child, and the French adolescent. These are generally started early. These are early starts, not quite birth necessarily, but early ART starts. Some you can find virus, some you can't. The impact 115, a P1115 group, much more the type 1 mode of thinking, very, very, very low virus in those kids. There are 3 that still have not rebounded, 4 that went for a long time, and this was presented by Debbie Prasad at CROI last year. And then there's the baby cure study in South Africa, where 5 males maintained viral suppression during unscheduled or partial discontinuation of ART, which lasted from 3 to 10 months. So again, we're trying to figure out the different mechanisms. It does happen in children, but it doesn't seem to be quite as common, or at least not as well described as in adults. So I want to just put here that in adults, we usually think about that in late ART starts, about 1% of adults might achieve post-treatment control. But if adults are started early during infection, up to 6% of adults can get to a post-treatment control state. So the next question here is, do bNAbs offer a path to increase post-treatment control? Or maybe post-intervention control is another way of thinking about it. And bNAbs work differently than ART. They bind HIV and inhibit viral entry. They form immune complexes that enhance antigen presentation to T cells. And they may reduce viral reservoir by some of these mechanisms. So how can bNAbs get into these affect these pathways that I just mentioned? So really, it would be in the type 1 group or in the T cell mediated group, which naturally may be rare, but maybe something that can be generated with bNAbs, where there's a bNAb mediated direct antiviral activity, but also ADCC clearance and a vaccinal effect, which I'll talk about in a minute. If there is a boost of the T cell responses, that is also something that's been shown in adults with bNAbs and might benefit children as well. So here's the adult data. These are data about the reservoir after bNAbs. These are from Gabler et al. From the Rockefeller group, and adults treated with dual bNAbs had a reduction in their intact viral reservoir. So this is very exciting data, 46% reduction. And you can see from the circles where that shows that, 40% reduction in intact viral reservoir after 6 months on 2 bNAbs. Most of these were off ART during bNAbs, but not all. And it's unknown if being on or off ART really makes a difference in this setting. So some evidence that the reservoir can be impacted. These are really exciting data from the Rio study just presented at CROI this year. So there's slower rebound and some post-treatment control with triple bNAbs in adults, showing that with these 2 bNAbs versus placebo, at week 20, the bNAb participants were 91% less likely to rebound than the placebo group. Granted, bNAbs may still have been washing out during this time, so still some caveats. We don't know what happens out as we go farther and farther from washout. But the pattern was 24% viral rapid rebound, 48% delayed rebound, and up to 24% had sustained viral control to 72 weeks. So that's pretty long, considering the expected half-lives of even the long-acting agents here. The bNAb arm also had stronger T cell responses, and that's really important. And we think that was also seen in an eClear study 2 years prior. And there was a faster decline in intact viral reservoir than historical estimates. So taken together, Ali Sogard basically put the data together in the CROI plenary and said that post-bNAb control in 10 to 20% could be expected overall, and in 15 to 25% of adults with early ART start. So this is really optimistic, this is new, and this is something where we think, okay, maybe there's something going on here where we can move the dial in generating post-treatment control. So let's apply that to children. So these are the summary of ongoing and planned pediatric bNAb studies. I won't list them all. Some of these, I hope all of these happen. Let's leave it at that. So this is the first data from bNAbs just from Impact 2008. Just very quickly, this was VRC01, not as effective a bNAb, added to treatment. Didn't have an effect on the reservoir, but I'll just jump to the conclusion. which said that there was a bit of a reservoir decline in a concentration-dependent manner. So those who had the highest concentrations of the VRCO1 seemed to have a lower reservoir effect, which was nearly significant. Actually, it was significant at 0.03. So some suggestion that there could be an impact with bNAbs. I'll move to the Titello study here for in the interest of time. This is the flow of the Titello study. We enrolled 40 of those EIT children. 28 entered step 1, and then 25 continued to bNAbs alone. The median age was 3.6 years at the time of the intervention. High CD4 counts, all receiving at the time PI-based ART. So 44% maintained suppression throughout the full intervention. 56%, 14 kids rebounded. These results exceeded our predefined threshold for success, which was generated from share data where we expected no more than 30% at the maximum. So let's look a little deeper. So what about susceptibility to the bNAbs? So we did monogram PhenoSense, and the birth, and what was interesting was that you could see that at birth and failure for those who failed, so the orange bars are the failures, the blue bars are the successes. At birth and failure, the pattern is the same. No evolution among those who failed from what they had at birth. Remember, it's very hard to do this. You need intact virus to do the monogram testing. And so all those white empty boxes are kids where we couldn't do it because there was not enough intact virus to do it. The other thing we found is that there was a high degree of 10-10-74 susceptibility. Every single one of the successes was susceptible to 10-10-74 at birth. Which is interesting, and I'll talk about that in a second. So other associations of biomarkers. Lower reservoir at birth was associated with success. Lack of any viral failure in the plasma from 24 weeks till the intervention was also associated with success. These two may be linked factors. And then what we've really found interesting is this negative pattern. So losing your qualitative DNA PCR and never getting a serology, never developing a positive ELISA was highly predictive of success. Nobody with that pattern failed. And of the 11 total successes, 8 had that pattern. And of the 3 others, 1 seemed to have this locked reservoir pattern. So we wouldn't expect that pattern in someone with that locked pattern. We're trying to learn more about that child with the locked reservoir. Very interesting child. So what are the implications of all of this? Low reservoir in early life matters. One thing we don't know is do the other favorable characteristic, lack of rebound, for example, stem from this? There's little viral evolution in early treated children because we see these similar resistance patterns, and then the bNAbs susceptibility tracked with these other characteristics. So they track together and appear to predetermine later success. And it's almost like for the theology students here, it's very Calvinistic here. You're like going to go to heaven or go to hell based on who you are at birth. And that's sort of how it seems like some kids are just really set up for success early on. Okay, very quickly, long-term safety and reservoir data from Titello. These are the successes, and you can see that of the successes, 2 kids who had detectable intact virus at the beginning of the intervention lost it at the end of the intervention. But then they get it back later on, like 70. These are unpublished data, just off the press here. Very late, they get it back. So what does that mean? We're not sure. Maybe it's just nothing because there's only 2 kids. Looking at the failures, you see that when children fail, they have their reservoir. We find more provirus at failure, which makes sense. But we think these are short-lived cells because when you look at 12 to 24 weeks later, most of those have disappeared. So I'm looking at dark triangles versus open triangles here. So we have a lot more open triangles. That's good. That means we're not finding intact virus. By 12 to 24 weeks, even after failure, as these kids are being resuppressed on ART. And then at the farthest time point out, some of these kids have rebounded subsequently, and that may be impacting it. But at the end of the day, they're not that far off from their initial pattern that they had prior to the intervention. Okay. I'm going to talk in the last 2 or 3 minutes about Tutelo Plus. Was funded by UO1, now is funded only by the Impact Network. Thank you, Impact Network. So key questions after Tutelo. Can bNAbs impact the proviral reservoir in children? Can broader and more potent bNAbs achieve similar treatment success as small molecule ART? And can some early treated, bNAb treated children succeed in an ATI? So this is the design. In step 1, we give ART and 3 bNAbs, and we rotate. 1 bNAb is given every month, and a second one is rotated. So we rotate 1400 and 121, alternating months, so they get that essentially every 8 weeks. But we believe that this is creating 3 active bNAbs on board all the time, but it's a lot easier to give at the visits. These are long and complicated visits to give infusions, and 2 is way better than 3 per visit. And then step 2, we're asking if children are susceptible to 2 of the 3 bNAbs. So unlike the first study, we are pre-screening and only putting children into the bNAb only step if they're susceptible to 2 of the 3 bNAbs, because we're trying to get 100% suppression and show that this can work as well as ART if we screen and we know the resistance patterns. And then last, we're asking if the selected kids who are negative, have very low evidence of virus in their body, we're going to try an ATI in those children in a very carefully monitored setting. So in our new era of limited funding, our plan is to continue each step as long as there's funding for that step, and we are taking it step by step. And I hope we can get all the way through step 3. Here are the data we have so far, and this is my last slide, until my conclusion. We opened in November. We enrolled the first 12 participants. The safety and PK phase is complete. We found in PK tests, the PK data so far, we need to go up a bit on 2 of the 3 bNAbs, the VRC07 and the 1400 to 25 mg per kg, dosed once a month or once every 8 weeks for the 1400. The PGT 121 was okay where it was dosed. It's very hard to determine how to dose these because we don't know the targets that we're aiming for, but we're using adult data, we're extrapolating, and we're kind of doing the best we can. So this is the second study now where we've had to go up a bit in pediatric dosing of bNAbs compared to adult data, just to keep that in mind. It seems that kids do metabolize the bNAbs a little bit faster. We did monogram phenotyping for all of these. What we found is that all children were susceptible to VRC07, and there was a mixed pattern for the other 2. And that mixed pattern ultimately allowed us to have 10 children who are eligible for step 2, 10 of 12, so that's not bad. So we're 10 of 12 have enough susceptibility to go into step 2. That opened on June 23rd, so we are starting. We are moving forward into the study, and it's going. Wrapping up, sorry to be over. Key points: very low intact reservoirs in early treated children. Several possible routes to post-treatment control. Pediatric bNAb treatment may offer an alternate treatment strategy for HIV and a potential strategy for promoting post-treatment control. I've noted some of the factors associated with success here. And Tutelo Plus is an innovative design that is rotating the bNAb treatment, building on the findings of Tutelo, and we are underway. So thank you all. Many acknowledgements here thank you. Most importantly, the mothers and children in the EIT, Tutelo Plus cohorts who are amazing, and the many, many supporters that are listed here.